Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast, and we are here to discuss an absolutely dramatic URC quarterfinals week. We have finals set up for most of the competitions in the world, the Premiership, Super Rugby. The top 14 is still going on for another few weeks. We're going to try to cover all of that. We're going to look back at the URC quarterfinals. We're going to look at the wink that has set 1,000 tweets on. We're going to talk about everything. So I'm here with Shaun today. Shaun, I think we almost need to just jump into it straight away because we had Pollockgate and that was quite dramatic. That was a lot of a hoo-ha, and we had a good chat about it last week. But this Jaden Hendrikse gate and the kicks and everything, I think my first question, Shaun, is Hendrikse the most likely South African scrum half to do what he did on Saturday? I think he is.
Yes, that's a great question. Yes. Who in the past? Jimmy Cowan would definitely do that. I'm trying to think from a South African point of view. There's no.
Cockett?
Yes. Cockett for sure. Imagine Cockett versus Jaden in that situation. It would have been, and they both would have been kicking as well, so it would have been a fist fight. But in South Africa, currently, I think you're 100% right. I think Jaden is the only one now in playing in the URC. I love that question.
Shaun, I guess let's just start with the drama, then we can sort of discuss the game itself. So I think a few things. One, I don't think, and I think this was part of the issue in some ways for Munster, I don't think they were prepared for this. Because I think even just the tactics of who kicks where, having Crowley kick straight in front instead of Scannell, I was just like, okay, that maybe doesn't make the most sense. And it seemed like Neil Powell knew, okay, Davis needs to kick on the left. Jordan kicks on the right. Jaden can kick it straight and all that sort of stuff. And obviously once, I guess there was a toss, and once the Sharks were the ones to first kick, I guess they were able to set the tone. But I think even from that first kick between Jaden and Jack Crowley, there was already obviously some verbals that Jaden was, hurtling some verbals to the point where Adamson said, look, if you carry on with this, you're not going to kick again. So, I don't know if that was also part of Neil Powell's tactics to sort of pair him with Crowley or to try and put him off the game. But it seemed like all of those ingredients started to create the storm that was going to happen in the third last kick.
Yeah. I still think the Sharks are probably repairing an office door on Monday, having to get to that printer to print out everything. But one thing we do know about Neil Powell is like he's exceptionally prepared, so maybe I'm doing him a disservice. So very interesting. So the one thing that I did pick up was that it looks like Crowley was injured or had a niggle or something. So that's probably the reason for him kicking in front. There's that. The other thing is if there was anyone that was going to get rattled, it wasn't going to be a proper kicker in front of the post. So I would, if it was going to be for the spice, then I definitely would have moved Jaden elsewhere. But so this is my thing. I really am disappointed with what happened and how it happened. The one thing though is social media, like everyone is like, oh, but it was just a wink. It's not about the wink. That's the whole thing. The wink is okay. It was all that other stuff that happened. There was a lot of shit going on. And we know it, playing rugby, playing any sports, you're going to do whatever you can to get an edge. If you're an old boy playing a game and there's a youngster up against you, you're going to get in a nice late or early late hit or something, and you're going to chirp him because you know if he is worried about you, he will not be that much of a threat because he's scared that your shoulders are going to break some of his ribs. If he isn't worried about you, he's going to run around you all day, and then, that's it. Then you're buying beers for the week. So we know about that. My thing is that first confrontation. So I don't believe anything. I don't believe all of this has come from nothing. So there's been something, but it went over the top. So when that went over the top, and I mean, he was told twice after his kick to back down. He didn't back down the first time. after the second time, he's like, if you carry on like this, I will take you away from this kicking contest. And then he backed off, but then he didn't back off. Then that whole cramp situation, totally. It's a cramp. It's cool. We've all had them. I think we'd much rather break an arm than have a calf cramp, because it is debilitating and it's painful, and you really feel like your world's coming to an end. But that situation on the ground, there was more happening there. So it went on a bit long. It should have moved. I think that's the referee's thing that happened. And then that wink was basically, yeah, I got this one over you. I have no problem with that. It was the stuff that happened before. It was the delay and the continued over there. And then my biggest gripe was having a non-playing official, Sharks official, physio get involved. Absolute no-no. Like, you cannot. And I totally agree with Jack Crowley. If I was Jack Crowley, I would be in the same. Like, I've got a job to do. He was told not to do his job because he was going to go ahead and kick, and they're just like, no, you can't do it. And then it just carried on, and he basically told him to fuck off, because he just get on with it. Like, they're there to do something, and the Sharks needed to delay and thing. And then for that physio to get involved and all that, it's not cool. Like, it's not a broken leg or a neck injury. It is just a calf. Having said what I said about a calf cramp, it is just a calf cramp. Like, you can roll away or move away. So there was a lot of stuff. It was how nasty it got off that first kick. It then progressed, and then with the coach or physio getting involved in verbals, like, that's when you can't have stuff like that. Like, that's when it's like, cool, we got to draw the line, and that's that. So yeah, that's my thought on it. Like, I'm super unhappy about it, and I just flipping disappointed, man.
Yeah. I guess that's where I also fall into it, is like, I think most of the blame in this blame pie should go to Mike Adamson and the officials. I think this could have been managed a lot better. And like you said, Shaun, I think point number one is, once Jaden is cramping up, I mean, Crowley was basically almost halfway through his kicking sort of like routine. Once like all the King's horses and all the Sharks men came onto the field to help Jaden, like, Adamson should have just been like, okay, move him, and like basically like, you have 10 seconds to move him, Jack, you can start again, type of thing, and sort of get this process going. But then once Adamson decided, okay, Crowley, I'm going to stop you from your kick, we have to let this process go on, then obviously I guess the Sharks were like, okay, let's just take full advantage of it. Not necessarily nefariously, but they're like, okay, they're
Bingo.
not in a rush.
Yeah, if you given that chance, you will push it as far as possible. That is the one thing, and we see it in rugby all the time. Like, everyone's like, oh, they're offsides. Richie McCaw spent his whole life offside. Richie McCaw was allowed to spend his whole life offside, so he did it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing. If you are allowed to be there, it's technically legal.
So yeah, I guess obviously we don't have many of these. I mean, I think this is the fourth kicking shootout that's happened in, I think, in sort of main, sort of like higher level professional rugby. And I think we need to have a proper routine for this, because I also think it shouldn't be that the two opposing players are that close that they can have like verbals with each other, or you have a situation which you have with Hendrikse of him getting sort of medical attention. Even let's say it was a more serious injury. Let's say he somehow did his neck or something like that. Like, there should be a situation where...
Sounds like a kick I'd take.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, just whip something. Like, it shouldn't be that Jack Crowley is now setting up for his kick while he's getting medical attention, however legitimate you think it was. So, like in football, they have this thing of like, the player has to come back to his team because they all line up at the halfway line. The player has to come back all the way back to his team, and then the next player can come and approach for his penalty. And I think we need something similar for that in rugby. Yeah. Obviously, it's a different system, but Crowley should be almost like called by the ref to come set up once Hendrikse or whoever the kicker is finished with his routine. And if he needs medical attention, once it's assessed, okay, it's just cramp, move him another 5 meters. Jack, you can come on. But now it's Crowley trying to set up. It's Hendrikse getting medical attention. It's some Oaken Jeans having words with Crowley. The physio having words with Crowley. It's Adamson trying to, like, then it becomes a mess. So
they should both take a kick at the same time, bro. They should just line up 5 meters apart, and they have to kick when 20 seconds are done. They must both take their kick. If you finish your kick and it goes over before the other guy, you can give him verbals, and then all's happy.
Yeah, Dan Bigger would lose all of those. But yeah, all then yeah, one side kicks on one side of the field, the other side kicks on the other side of the field. But it just felt like it was just so poorly managed. And I don't want to like have a go at the ref, but it also felt like Mike Adamson was the perfect ref for this to sort of devolve into what it devolved into, like because he also has a very loose hand on games at the best of times. So then it became more of a thing. And yeah, like like I get why Munster fans are mad, and to an extent they have a right to be mad up to a certain point. Like even like on Blue Sky, I was like, look, I'm going to allow Munster fans to be mad, more than fair enough. But there's two things about this. Obviously, one, you're pretty much the shithouse kings in URC land, obviously, the likes of Omani and all that sort of stuff. So, you can't protest too much. But number two, and this thing that we all need to remember about this was really freaking funny as well. And
Yeah.
that's the main thing we need to remember, that it sucks if it's your team, and I can fully get why people are very mad about this, and you can say it's improper, but it's also really fun.
Yeah, it was great. The Sharks have officially become like the bottom side for neutrals. I really do believe that. The other thing I saw was if it's Sharks versus Leinster in the final, who are Munster going to support? Because
I mean, Sharks versus Glasgow is also pretty tough for Munster fans as well.
this is also true. So yeah, the Sharks they've lost a lot, unfortunately. A lot of respect and a lot of just it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and you can. Like I said, everyone is they're taking the snippets out of it that they want to argue because it got a little bit shitty on socials. It got very shitty, but the bottom line is, if you look at that whole thing happening again, if it wasn't your side and all that sort of stuff, it really leave a bad taste in your mouth. And like, I think everyone who's looked at that moment that those verbals happened and those arguments happened, they were like, ooh, this is going to blow up a little bit. And then before that was obviously the wink, and everyone's like, haha, that's funny. But I think just as a whole, you'll look at it and you'll just be like, certain individuals could have handled themselves better.
Yeah.
So yeah. But onto the game. I thought all of that stuff that happened was afterwards, and all those arguments and slowing things down, I thought it was perfectly suited for Munster. Like they are, as you say, like the shit-ass kings, they do it, they've done it. The thing is this game, it would have been slow and niggly and everything, and that would have suited Munster's game plan. That's where they are right now, because they're not the Munster that won the URC. They're kind of hanging on a little bit, and I say that with respect. Like they're not there, but you know that they can sneak a win like this.
Yeah.
The Sharks, on the other hand, were playing like a niggly game just because they just not finding themselves. Like they've done it this whole season. They've fought through everything. They need to have their backs against the wall, and in order to kind of motivate themselves and play rugby. Like the last 10 minutes of that game, the Sharks were playing rugby. Like they were playing, and they were playing to win. And that's why, as much as you say, and I agree with you, I think Munster weren't necessarily prepared for the kickoff, but I do think that's why the Sharks were playing so hard, is because they didn't want to go down to a shootout. Because even extra time, like Munster would just be like, it's cool. Like, we'll just carry on. Like, we'll just carry on carrying on. You're not running us off our feet. The only space that they were really not in control was at scrum time. Even that went a little bit their way every now and then. So, yeah, it was just another game by the Sharks where they just didn't quite hit their peak. They like the most intelligent and clever person in school, but they don't study because they know if they don't study, they don't need to really put effort in, but they'll get by. Yeah, that's just how it is. Like, yeah, I don't know. I do believe they're going to come good though, but we can talk about that after you've spoken about the
Yeah,
That.
look, I mean, I haven't watched the full game, and I see URC have put the full game up on YouTube, so I'll definitely launch into that tonight. Um, what I've seen and sort of the things I've read and the parts that I did see, look, it's similar to most other games. The Sharks have, the Sharks have a good 20 minutes in them, like a very good 20 minutes in them in most games, where they're able to, usually it's when they're like 14 points behind and then they make that up in quite quick succession and
And
Estates
then
is
slow down again.
yeah. So that's the problem is they have a great 20 minutes in them, they have an absolutely horrible 20 minutes in them. And you sort of have to meet in between to see how they win these matches. And you know, playing, I mean, it's not February in Durban, but obviously playing in Durban this time of year, you have the humidity. It's not the ball's a bit greasy, like it's not the best conditions ever. So it kind of is not a wet weather game, but it is one of those games that's going to be stop start. It's going to be a lot of, set piece and scrum and all that sort of stuff will matter as well. And from what I saw, it seemed like the Sharks once, after the try from was it Calvin Nash, I think, at the first try in the corner. Like once they got into the game in the second half, because it was 7-0 at halftime to Munster, they were able to start getting those phases together. They're able to get Mapimpi and Hooker into the game. They're able to get Estes and Fussy into the game. That's when they are at their best. And I it's so weird because it feels like I can't really fault the Sharks backline in attack. I think I've said this most of the season. I can't really fault the Sharks who's forwards in attack. It feels like they do quite well. Even the tight five, some of them can be pretty good in attack. Like we've talked about Itzebeth and how important he is. We've talked about Oxen Chair. We've talked about Jason Jenkins at times. And sometimes it just doesn't necessarily all happen at the same time together, one. And two, defensively, sometimes they just can go a bit on walkabout. So some of the tries that Munster scored, okay, some of it was unlucky. Mapimpi slipped trying to collect the grubber kick. You sort of get that sort of like coast to coast attack that they did that results in a try for Calvin Nash and Kilgallen running around Hendricks. So like that's somewhat unlucky, but it's also just like, geez, you're a much better team than these mistakes as well. So I'm getting to that point now. I mean, they've won, I think 6 or 7 in a row now, Sean, and it's been against really good teams as well. I don't know anymore. Like, this could actually just be, you know what? URC just picks a team sometimes, and they are just the ones that have the form and they can just take it through all the way to the final. And I mean, we'll talk about it a bit later, but as a Bulls fan, I am I'm definitely not fully confident about Saturday. I'm well aware that the Sharks can put some egg on our face, but I'm also like my rugby brain is also thinking, surely not. Like a team that's been playing this up and down and pretty below average, or at least below their potential, they can't get away with this. Like, yeah, there's that gift that always plays like you can't keep getting away with this. That's what I feel like with the Sharks right now. Like you genuinely can't win a competition playing at 70%, and that's probably being generous, but playing at like 70% of your potential.
I I think it's impossible that the Sharks cannot really play to their potential for 2 years. Um,
Yeah.
so I feel it's coming, and it's coming. If it had to come on Saturday in the semi-final, the Bulls would be so shocked. So that is the one thing. Like, how do you prepare for a side with what you think they're going to do, but they never ever do it? Like, what are you planning for? It's like Springboks during the 23 World Cup. Like, we had three different teams we could have fielded. We had 2.5 game plans. Like, it was very hard, you
Yeah.
know? So
But
there's that.
just to interrupt you quickly, Sean, but at least the box were like you're preparing for a high standard. Yes, they could play very different
Yes.
ways, but you knew, okay, if they play tight, their scrum and their CP is going to be fantastic. They're going to be fantastic with the carry, fantastic in defense, fantastic with the attacking game. The Sharks are just like, which part of the game today will be good?
Yeah. So there's that. If the Sharks had to come good on Saturday, which I feel they will, everyone would be scrambling. The Bulls would be scrambling on the day. There's no doubt about it. I still think it's going to be a tight game either way. The only way someone wins by more than 15 points is if the Bulls get just eat away at them and the Sharks roll.
Yeah.
I don't think the Sharks going to win massively. But if the Sharks come good, I think whoever they're playing in the final a week later are also going to be scrambling. Like it could be one of like scrape through the quarters and then go bang bang with two of your best performances would be the most URC thing ever. Like to go from where they've gone to go and win it would be the most URC thing ever. For them to go and put through a world-class performance would be the most Sharks thing. We're gonna have to come up with the terminology for it.
Yeah.
I do I do want to say something quickly about Munster before we move on.
Yeah.
So there were four absolute legends that retired. So Stephen Archer, Peter O'Mahony, Conor Murray, and then was it Niall Scannell? I know, yeah. I don't know how many. I'm really guesstimating here, but there's comfortably over 500 appearances there. Surely. Like
Probably 6, 7, yeah.
yeah, that's massive. And they're legends of the game. And we hate O'Mahony. That's just because of who he is. He's in your face and he's going to make you work for it and he will turn a game around. But Conor Murray's broken plenty of South African heart, whether it's domestically or internationally. So yeah, that's a massive hole to be left in Munster. Like that's massive. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to see them playing URC again, and it's unfortunate they couldn't go on and win it. As a Sharks fan, glad that they didn't. But yeah, wow.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. Munster were almost having a similar type of season to the Sharks, where you also like it's not really the sum of its parts, but they do have the potential for a period in the game to look really good, and you're like, oh, okay, this is the Munster we've all been waiting for, and you know. The halfbacks are going well. They have Gavin Coombs just carrying like a monster. I mean, but also their lineout was absolutely horrible for most of the season. Like their defense has been questionable. Like it feels like they kind of get themselves into a rut with just phase play and sort of get caught with like ball in hand and bad field position. So it kind of felt perfect that this game went into extra time, into a kick. Sort of a shootout, because both teams, their good match they're good and their bad match they're bad, like absolutely completely. So yeah, I mean but it's only Munster that can get themselves to a game like that. Like I think most other teams, once the Sharks sort of put that comeback and they got themselves ahead in the last 10 minutes, maybe other teams fall off. I mean, we had questions about, the likes of Leinster, maybe they should have taken 3 points in the Champions Cup final. But Munster, they had the first opportunity. Conor Murray says, I'm good, I'll take this opportunity. Like, that's just, and you kind of mentioned earlier when you said Crowley's not the person to target, but he really isn't, because he is that big match player. He is that guy that did that long drop goal against Leinster a few years ago. He is that guy that, will swear at the Sharks staff and then slot his kick, like almost like a banana sort of curving kick.
How was that?
Jeez. I almost, like when I watched it, because I watched it afterwards, I was like, how did that even go in? Because it looked like he scuffed that kick horribly. And that maybe is what you're saying earlier about him being possibly injured still, because I think it is a rib injury. Maybe that is affecting him. But yeah, it's just insane. But they are just the people for a big game like that. It's just unfortunate that because you're always in these big close games, for Munster, they almost are like, they almost have a 50-50 record. But it's because they're always in these games that you always remember them. So they're always good value for a game like this.
Yeah. There's a player, Craig Casey. Craig Casey has hit unbelievable form. I thought he was probably the player of the game for me. He was incredible. When they took him off, I was like, it's hard to say don't bring on Conor Murray because like he adds so much value. But I thought Casey was doing so well there. So it must have been something that they picked up in terms of, efforts and all that. But there was a moment in the game. So Takir Abrams, I mean, he's deadly. But this game really wasn't suited for him. There was quite a lot of high ball and everything. When they brought on Mike Haley, I messaged a mate of mine. I'm like, this guy, he's the kind of player that will turn this game around because he is not an opportunity making 15. He is a 15 that will be in the right position every time. He will field those high balls and then he will just link up nicely. He will create that 2-on-1 just by running his normal line. he is so dangerous. And I am so grateful, and the Sharks should be too, that he wasn't in the form he was in before he got injured.
Yeah.
Firstly, he would have started, but that guy, he's so dangerous. And I mean, the first time he came, I think when he came on, he took 2 high balls straight away. I think he was involved in a tackle, a big tackle, I think, and then he broke the line or set up a line break or something like that. I was like, oh shit, here we go again. The Sharks have given everyone a chance and they're gonna take it. But yeah, it was a great game of rugby. It was tough. There were some big performances all around. There were some poor performances all around. Yeah, like I definitely want to chat about Jaden Hendrikse, not what happened after full time, but we've been chatting about it for a while with regards to his form. Like he's passing, like he's not hitting his targets on his passes. It's just weird. It's not the time he takes. Like everyone complains, like when they don't like a 9, they're like he's taking too long. I don't buy into that too much. But if you ever look at his passes aren't hitting the players in front of them. They got to lean back, and just seems like he's just off. But to be fair, this is a kind of game. It's a kind of scuffle and fight that he needs to maybe come right. I mean, he did show his value to kick the kicks, but it's almost like an abusive relationship where, like they do one thing good to bail you out of shit, and you're like, oh, but see, look at all the good. But what you forget about is all the 90 things before that they did to get you in there. So, yeah, but whew, what a game. What a game.
I also want to just highlight quickly, I think from also the post I saw, Vinny Tuka I think has been understated how great he's been this season. And I was looking at the stats for the season. You will not believe who's second for line-out steals in the URC, and that's Vincent Tuka. And that's probably because he's been, moonlighting at lock. I mean, most games feels like he finishes at lock. He's obviously been, used as a line-out option. I mean, look, it makes sense almost. I mean, obviously it wasn't all his doing because of the citizenship stuff, but it almost makes sense that in a season where he's sort of moonlight as a lock and a flank and has become more and more of a blindside flank, he's now he's caught Rassie Erasmus' attention, and it's now like he's a part of the Springbok squad. But yeah, I don't think we've talked about him too much this season, and that's because I guess, yeah, there's a lot of other things to talk about with the Sharks and obviously a lot of other superstar players. But he's been, I think, quietly just been having a really, really high quality season.
Very good. Like he's been that constant. He's been that almost that like motivational speaker in the Sharks. Like you do see him having quite a more of a senior role in it as well. Like just getting the guys up. Like it doesn't seem that his shoulders drop in a game. And to be fair, if your shoulders are ever going to drop, it's when you're playing for the Sharks, because like they just have 1,000 of those opportunities a game. But yeah, very interesting. I was having a look at some, so Ultimate Rugby posted some stuff on social media about ruck arrivals, and he was obviously, him and Vincent Koch were the highest, but they did play 100 minutes. But he made 35 ruck arrivals on Saturday in 100 minutes, and he won 12 of those rucks. The only other person that came close, I think, was Andre Esterhazen, and I think it was 8 and 8 or something like that. But I mean, he gets through a mountain of work. Like it's not, to be fair, the backs and stuff like that, they don't always get to decide what rucks they can hit, but they can make those decisions based on the picture. If you're a flanker, you've got to hit those rucks regardless. So yeah, it was pretty good going. And as you say, it jumps in the lineup, which is huge. Like it's massive, especially from a Springbok point of view as well. It's good to have that because Visser and Evan Roos are not line-out jumping 8s. Hanekom is more, Vermeulen used to be. So yeah, it obviously makes sense to have someone that's pretty proficient at line-outs. But I'm glad to hear about that line-out steal stat. I wasn't aware.
Crazy. So let's go to the other quarterfinals in South Africa. Another game that was also a bit dramatic at times. The Bulls win 42-33 against Edinburgh. So yeah, this is also an up and down game. And I mean, look, I said that the Sharks have 20 minutes of bad and good in them. The Bulls also will have a pretty good game, and then they just have a 15-20 minute period where they just switch off as well. So I can't, I have to be fair and also just point that out with the Bulls as well. I guess, luckily in this case, it started earlier for them. So usually it's at the second half, they sort of fall asleep and then a 20, 30 point lead becomes like a nail-biting 5 minute, a 5 point win at the end. But here, I mean, I don't even know, like it just, Edinburgh just started just fast out of the tracks. And I felt like I'm dealing with a fly that's just flying around me the whole time. But it felt
Ninja.
like, yeah, I'm just like the whole time. But it felt like the first few minutes or the first 20 or so minutes of the game, Edinburgh had three opportunities and they scored three of them. And the lead was built up from that. The yellow card to Seb de Klerk, I mean, yeah, unfortunate, but I think the right call. And you're just like, surely not. Like, surely we're not going to go to another situation in which a Scottish team beats the Bulls at Loftus. Someone tweeted like, if an Scottish team beats the Bulls, they need to take down that altitude it matters sign. And I was like, you're not fair enough. Like, we can't earn that anymore.
Just take a shop in right there. Doesn't.
Not matter. But look, but shout out to the Bulls. I think they sort of collected themselves and they really then started playing like that Loftus brand of rugby that they like to play. Like they almost have two different game plans. They have like their travel game plan that they take with their suitcases where they play a lot tighter, use their forwards and sort of grind you out and play. I don't want to say 10-man rugby, but like a lot more of a tighter game. Then they have the Loftus, we're gonna run you tired and probably run ourselves tired and try to use that altitude to our advantage. So then once the Bulls had that 40 to 50 minute period where they scored, I think, three tries in quick succession, yeah, it almost was game over, but they almost let Edinburgh through in again. So I think, yeah, the forwards look really good, the scrum looks great. Yeah, there's just a few worries with obviously Keegan Johannes is doing his best, but there's worries I think at 10. Ambrose Papier, I don't think he was in the best form at 9 because he's also coming back from injury. So yeah, I wouldn't say the Bulls are at the peak of form as well coming into a semi-final.
The biggest thing that I think the Bulls will take out of this game, and I think for the fans as well, is it is really hard as a team, as 15 individuals to be playing and be on top and then fall down a little bit, like kind of fall asleep and then have the other team on top. It is so hard to get back on top after that. Like
Yeah.
just mentally, it is really one of the toughest things because your opposition have their tails up and you're like, oh, we really should have put this. You know what I mean? Like you're thinking the whole time in your back of your head, you're like, we shouldn't be here. Like we've let ourselves down. Like that's the kind of thing that you don't want. You just want to get on with the game. So the Bulls do have that probably more than anyone, definitely more than the Sharks. But yeah, it's interesting. Papier wasn't great. The thing is his form this whole season means that it's not going to be long. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's been in great form for 2 years. And I mean, to still score 42 points and have a bad game with a bad 9 and a bad 10 in inverted commas, like it's pretty good going. There's interesting things there. I'm quite interested to see how they manage the midfield. I think Harold Forster's definitely like cemented in at 12. I think what him being there at 12, I mean, they can obviously have Creel at 12, but I think with Forster being there at 12, it takes a one position player and blocks up a hole and allows you to fill in the gaps elsewhere. Where if Forster's on the bench, he really has to come in at 12. Anywhere else would be a stretch. Creel can play 13. Creel can play anywhere. So yeah, I think that's it for me. The big thing for me is going to be the bench, and it's going to be how long can the Bulls um, ride the wave of having such a strong pack. It's going to obviously, I think it's going to be a tightish battle against the Sharks, but I do think the Bulls will probably have the edge more than the Sharks will. Like I think it could go either way, but I think it'll fall slightly on the Bulls side in the beginning, and then afterwards it's going to be the second half because the one thing that happened in the Sharks game is the second half front row put their hand up big time,
Yeah.
big time. Like everyone was worried about the Sharks front row coming off the bench. They were like, yeah, we've really you've got to have the Springbok front row go the whole way. Pheasant Bata, for one, was immense. 10 out of 10 lineouts or 11 out of 11, 11 out of 11. You had 100%. Like, scrum reasonably well. Yeah, so the Sharks front row will make the Bulls worry a little
Yeah.
if they hit that form.
I think I'm trying to just Google as you're speaking. I think Gerard Steenkamp is supposed to come back this weekend. He's
Oh,
been,
that is huge.
yeah, he's been, I think, in the sort of, yeah, like just he's been close, I think, the last few weeks. So you wonder if this is the game. I mean, you kind of have to risk him because like you said, Shaun, I mean, Andrew Jacobs, like he's a really good young tight end. Like, and Sempio Matanzima, like I think he's also still coming back into form from obviously he was away for most of the season with his heart issues. So you do want that boost. And I mean, I think you almost want to, yeah, it's a difficult one because Steenkamp's also coming back from a longish term injury, but you expect that the Bok, someone with what, about 10 Springbok caps, he's more likely to be at a higher level coming back from injury than a player that had, a long-term injury themselves that's also played like a handful or so of games. So that I think will help a lot. And obviously because of injuries to the likes of, Steenkamp, Arroch Low, there has been a bit of a pressure on the depth of the team. But I think though it's just going to matter because I assume they're going to start Van Staden and bench Coetzee, but it doesn't really matter. But basically, that player that comes on, probably one for the other, that player has a big role to play because, like you said, Shaun, I think this game will probably go down the last 30 minutes, if not another 20 minutes extra, like we saw last week. So if it's Coetzee coming on, if it's Van Staden coming on, they have a big sort of senior role to play because the other play, I mean, okay, them and Anke van der Merwe are also an experienced player, but then the other players aren't necessarily either as experienced or maybe as sort of game changing as the others. I mean, Monray Smith can do a job, and Ron Vermaak can do a job as well, but you're not, or Johannes Kirsten, I should say, but you're not necessarily getting like the star game changers, and that's where it's going to have to come down for this game because I think the Bulls have the better 15 than the Sharks, starting 15. But also, I mean, I think if everyone in the Sharks sort of lives to their game and lives to their potential, it's a scary sight. So, yeah, the scrums will be very interesting. I mean, the Bulls have had the best scrum in the competition for the whole season. They've won the most penalties. They've been really good on their own ball. But yeah, Vocalo did give Oxenchair a lot of issues. So I think Ox will try to get one back on him. Vessels, I think he's been really growing almost game by game as a loose head. But I also think Vincent Koch is licking his lips as well because that's a young loose head that you can try to really put under pressure. And there's been a few times he's conceded penalties, Vessels, for taking the Andrew Porter route into a scrum. So I think this is balanced well. And with the Bulls, the thing that they'll have to just watch out for is just, I think defensively, they haven't really been as good as they could be. And I think that's the typical thing with the Loftus games. The Bulls have almost said, I guess they made this agreement a season or two ago. Look, we'd rather win the Loftus games 42-40 than try to win at 25-50. Like, they'd rather it be sort of a high scoring game and sort of back themselves that they'll outlast their opponents. Obviously, number one, you're facing a South African team, so the altitude factor is maybe less of a factor than it would be against a team flying in from overseas. And number two, I don't know, I don't even know, Sharky, like, does it suit the Sharks more if it's a loosey game and everyone's running around? Which I kind of think it does because the Sharks have just these brilliant attacking players. Or if it's a stop-start tight, we're kicking it 60 meters down the field, Willie le Roux and Johannes are trying to sort of play territory, and then we're going to just maul and scrum and everything. Does that also seems like it suits the Sharks? I don't even know which sort of approach would make the Sharks more uncomfortable.
I really think now, because it's against the Sharks, and because the Sharks are so meh, is you have to go, what are our strengths for our game plan, and we have to stick to that. It's got to be one of those games that is boring. Just do your meat and three veg. Kick for the corner, maul, take the points. Just do that because the Sharks will break. The other thing that I will say, if I'm Jack White, who's their defensive coach, by the way?
That's a good question. It's not coming to mind right now.
So if I'm the Bulls defensive coach, I'm telling Jake White, like, all we got to make sure that we drill into the guys this week is just get back into position if there's a line break. Because the Sharks, the Bulls are a little leaky on defense, but I really feel that with the Sharks, with the inaccuracy of them, just whether it's a pass or whether it's a slower ball or people trying to find themselves, I think that them to go bang bang with the line break and score a try, I think is hard. If they score straight off that line break, it's a different story. But if you can scramble your recycle defense well enough, just get bodies back behind the ball, I think that that line will be enough to slow the Sharks down sufficiently that you can go hunting, even if it's in your own 22. But yeah, Bulls have to stick to their game plan, what's best suited to them. Like literally be Springboks 2019. You just do what your strengths are and you just go with that and you don't care about anybody else. And I couldn't give a shit about the fans or anyone. Like you just go and do your thing. If it's on, it's on, but you never ever 50-50 it.
Yeah, it's just yeah, like I've said, I think the Bulls almost are comfortable with both game plans. Like even last year in the semi-final against Leinster, they said, okay, we're gonna actually tighten things up. We're gonna try to sort of tactic our way against Leinster and kick to the corners and trust our rolling more, trust the set piece. And maybe that's Saturday is the game to do that as well against the Sharks and not try to sort of go a 40-30 type of game and, allow the back three to have the opportunities because, yeah, I mean, there's so many, I think, games or matchups that you can look forward to in this game because there's a lot of players that are playing quite well right now. But I think even just on the wings, I mean, Moody versus Mapimpi, I think will be quite tasty because I think both have been playing quite well this season. Ethan Hooker's just been close to unstoppable as well, but geez, Save de Klerk has been really good. So, you don't want those breakaway opportunities for each of them. The one thing I want to mention though, before we move on is, geez, what a great game from Willie le Roux. Like, I mean, obviously he had to be a number 10. We found out that, okay, Willie le Roux wants to be a 10, but maybe we should make him a 10 on a more permanent basis.
You make him a 10 via 60 minutes at 15. If you play 60 minutes at 15 and you put him into 10, it's a different story. He's sussed everything out. He knows the game. He knows how that guy's going to step. If you start him at 10, he's like, oh, I'm feeling a bit rushed.
But yeah, he was fantastic. His kicking was good. His distribution was amazing. Willie le Roux's in top form when he starts berating his forwards after he has a bad kick and then he blames everyone else for the kick. So yeah, he's doing his best thing. And yeah, he was deservedly man of the match. And I think on the Sharks side, that's someone you have to try and make sure that they don't have their imprint on the game because le Roux is just able to, with his kicking, like I said, with his passing, just able to really control where and how this game is played. And he was just brilliant on Saturday. And also, geez, I mean, another thing to mention, the two number 8s in the game were great. Bradbury and Hanekom were just carrying like monsters.
Bradbury surprised me big time. Big time. So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, he's obviously been a Scottish international. Like, I guess he's probably fifth or sixth in the pecking order for the Scots. So he's in and around there. But yeah, I mean, he gave it as good as he got. I mean, Hanekom was also, up to his usual best, doing the things that he usually does. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I think also it's going to be a big test for that, the Ron O'Kea at 7 thing because the Sharks don't really have a Nokia type of 7. I mean, Chituka is a blindside flanker, but he's a much more mobile blindside flank. So it's going to be interesting to see if Nokia can sort of match up to him. So yeah, I mean, this game, we'll probably circle back to it at the end as well. There's so many things to look forward to. But yeah, Bulls, they get themselves a 42-33 win against Edinburgh.
I just want to say, Rassie must be sitting back and he must just have proud dad vibes when he's watching Willie le Roux and Makazole Mapimpi play the way they are. Like everyone is like, oh, just give Willie his 2 caps, give him 2 century, and then just that's it. Thank you. Like we there's been a change, like cool, we don't hate him. We think he's good enough, like he deserves 100. And then everyone's like, drop my pimpy. He's too old. He'll never make. And both of them have turned around and got there's going to be no selections out of the heart. It's going to be selections that we're going to get because we've earned it. I
Yeah.
mean, my pimpy 100 meters, 100 post contact meters on Saturday. 100.
How?
That guy, he's playing, they both him and Villy are on a different mission. They're on a different mission altogether, and I'm loving it. And we are in for a cracker. You talk about all these wingers and these form players on Saturday. Whoo!
Yeah. Saturday's going to be fireworks for sure. So let's go to the second team that did lose their quarterfinal. That's the Stormers traveling to Glasgow. They lost 36-18. They were in the game though. They could have taken the lead early in the second half. Sione Tuipulotu got himself a brace. At times, it did look like the Stormers were able to get something going, but it also felt like once Glasgow kicked it up a notch, geez, that attack is just really hard to keep up with. And it looked like Tuipulotu was back in like at top form. It felt like Tom Jordan is doing the things and creating things at 10. Carl Rowe was really good. So yeah, I think it's obviously we'll talk about their matchup against Leinster soon, but in some ways, yes, the Stormers didn't really help themselves. I don't think I think they in some ways they almost don't know what to do with the ball once they have it for more than like 2 or 3 phases. It kind of then feels like the ideas run out and then people become a bit too individualistic. But also Glasgow, on the other hand, like they are more than happy. Once you give them the ball, they know how to get it to make something out of it.
Yeah. Uh, As much as you say the Stormers were in it, they just looked very disappointing. I thought losing Salman Morat early
Oh,
was probably the turning point. In hindsight, you look back at it and you'd be like, that was the time. They lost probably, even if it was for the first 10 minutes while he was having his HI before they said that he failed it, they lost 2 vital lineouts. One cost him a try, 2 may have, I can't remember, but it was one cost him a try, definitely. And then they just lacked a little bit of leadership, specifically up front. And that was like, and that's where it hurt them. I have so many questions. Like everyone's been talking about like what to do with the Stormers. Is it a coaching thing? Is it a player thing? I think it's a massive combo of a lot of things. But to the game, they were lacking the leadership. When they lost Murat, it was clear. The other thing is Sibele Senatla's in ridiculous form. And I'm so glad, I'm so happy for him. It's quite his journey, he's made his journey quite public the last few years with injury and whatnot, and I'm just so happy for him. The other thing is Tom Jordan. I think I think Leinster would need to target Tom Jordan. But I think Tom Jordan is not this Tom Jordan we saw on Saturday if Tuipulotu is not on at 12th. I think that is the key metric that makes Tom Jordan at 10 so deadly. And he was just ripping people apart. Rory Dodge was great. Carl Steyn was incredible.
mm,
Like they're hitting, like they said, it was post match, they were saying they knew they were going to be in the quarterfinals for a while already, and it was really hard to get the motivation and keep things going. And they had a couple of wobbles, but all they were focused on was getting to that quarterfinal and winning. That was all they wanted, which is a little bit scary. Like it's a bit scary because they're almost like, cool, this is where the anxiety was around this moment, this game, and we've delivered. And yeah, like I don't for a second feel that the Stormers were crappy by themselves. I think they were responsible for large parts of it, but Glasgow were big time involved in that. Yeah, played really well, just cooked. And the Stormers will be disappointed. I feel that they're going to be exceptionally disappointed. It's 2 years in a row. I think last year they probably should have done better. This year they could have done better. they're probably flying home thinking we didn't leave it all out there, and that's the disappointing thing. But the injuries were the biggest factor for
Yeah.
me.
I guess the question is now, what type of team are the Stormers going to be? Like similar to what we're talking about with Munster. Munster lost a lot of key players they've now lost a lot of key players. And I think the Stormers are almost in between with, they've lost Daimani, they don't have John Fourie, Stephen Kipshoff's retired. They didn't have Frans Malanda for pretty much most of the season. Manie Libbok it seems like he's going to move on as well. So now, okay, you now built, the image you want to say of Sasha Finding Mazulu. Does that mean, you're going to play a game a bit of a different way than you've been playing it? Also, now you don't have Dion Fourie and Kitshoff and those sort of players to lead your pack. What does that mean for your defense? Because I think the defense has been a big problem this season for the Stormers. Like, they used to have a really good defense that could suck up pressure and then get the ball on the counter attack, get a turnover, usually probably from Dion Fourie, and then, just let their boys loose to score a try from like coast to coast. And yesterday, yes, tackle stats aren't the be all and end all, but they had a 61% tackle completion rate. But that was
In their setup, those tackles matter. In the Springbok setup, like not as much.
yes.
You know what I mean? Like it matters when the Stormers miss. It matters more.
And they're not getting the turnovers. I think that's almost the bigger red flag. And I mean, Paul de Villiers, I think he's been good. I think obviously he's 22, so he's only going to get better. And I think he's starting to fill that hole at open side. But yeah, I think the Stormers really need to have a big think about how they do things and what they do and everything. Look, I don't know if Dobbo is under pressure or not under pressure, if he's going to keep his job, whatever the case is. But regardless, next season the Stormers have to think and approach things a lot differently to how they approached it this season. I think this, in some ways, sort of closes the chapter on this season, and it's a big warning sign to the Stormers that whoever takes them forward next season, you're not going to have the strongest scrum like you've had the last few years. You're not going to have the defense that sucks everyone in. You're not going to have the turnover specialist. You're not going to have, I mean, Sasha is a different type of magic, but you're not going to have the magic of Manie Libbok as well as like an attacking threat. So now how do you rethink and rejig this team so you can get the best out of the players and the resources that you do have? I mean, Nkunu from the Sharks will help obviously with the scrum, but yeah, there's some holes that I don't think they can fill right now with the players that they have.
So there's two things I want to talk about. One, it's difficult when you look at it in isolation. When you look at Tiernason, de Villiers, and Roos, they've all had good seasons. I think that is clear. Roos probably not his best game, excuse me, but they've had good seasons. The thing is that loose trio is unbalanced for me. It's unbalanced, and I think that is where they're missing it. Whether it's a combination of just big grunts, like Dixon may not even balance that loose trio. Like I think they probably need to put someone bigger on the side, and the other is the experience side. The second thing I want to talk about is Sasha got a lot of heat after Friday. And a lot of the conversation was, his main character energy is not working. He needs to calm down. And I can see where those comments came from. The thing is about Sasha is he's a leader. He's a go-getter, and I'm a leader from the front. And he was trying that. The other thing is moving from 10 to 12 during the game didn't seem to suit him at the time. With the injury. So that it threw that all out. But he did seem to be wanting to be in control as a 10, but playing not a 10. And that maybe was a bit of a conflict of interest. It didn't work on Friday, but it's not a problem moving forward for me. Like I don't see that as an issue. I think the structures moving forward and the understanding and the learnings from that will come, he'll learn from it. I mean, the guy's is rugby intelligent. He's intelligent. Like he understands his shit. So it's just a learning curve from some experience. And then the structures in the Springbok setup will be a lot better as well. And I think he's learned his lesson in the Springboks that you don't hide anything from the coach. So, so yeah, it was just disappointing. But to be fair, if we had to, the only thing we were hoping was that Tuipulotu didn't come back into the form that he had before his injury, even though he played 40 minutes a week before. That's kind of what we were hoping for. But other than that, the score's kind of what you expected. And even though the Stormers were disappointing, it was expected. Probably, I think, listen, if you're going to lose, you want to play your best. And they didn't play their best. And yeah, it's just the way it is. It's kind of their season in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, also no Willemse, obviously he's been suspended. So, they were, I mean, I think if they had Willemse, maybe Tuipulotu isn't as, as good as he was. Yeah, it was maybe then like a 55-45. But yeah, like you said, Sean, those things then tip the scale quite a bit towards Glasgow.
Okay, big question. Willemse, he's available and fit to play. And Dan
Duplessis.
Duplessis gets injured. So how do you manage that back line? Gelant, Libok, Feinberg and Ngomazulu, Willemse, Hartzenberg. How do you balance that out?
Yeah. So I think the
I'm never seeing Loader at 13, ever.
unfortunately, they're not going to fulfill what we want to happen, Sean, and just see Ben Loader run it up at 13. But I think it helps a lot for Dobbo and whoever coaches the team in future that Marnie has sort of removed himself from that equation because it did also, and maybe that's kind of because the parts that I saw of the game, it was just that because Sasha and Marnie almost have missed each other with their injuries they haven't really built that chemistry. So I feel like Sasha has built his chemistry with Willemse and Damien must be looking at him being like, how did I get so old so quickly? Like that was me, like just 2 minutes ago. And now I'm the senior guy just being like, let the young kid do his thing. I'll just fill in where I need to fill in. But it doesn't feel like Sasha and Moni have had that time to be like, look, you
Good
do
point.
these things well as a run of the game. Like Moni, I think, is really good at the phase by phase type of things. And Sasha's almost better as like a power, like sort of the strike move type of 10, where his ability to run, his ability to take contact, his ability to kick and pass and everything, he can really just break the game open with one move. And then that's, I think, where he wants to try to do something himself. Marnie kind of lets the game come to him more because he's got that experience. I think he's got that patience. It's a bit more of a traditional 10 where Sasha, I mean, there's so much, it's going to sound like a swear with South Africa, but there's so much Owen Farrell in Sasha. Like that, I'm going to drive the game forward. I'm going to drive what the team does. I'm going to, you know, be the one that's shouting at the players. And we don't really have tens like that in South Africa. The nines do that job. It's the Farid Dupree getting on your butt. It's the Faf de Klerk. It's like, the Polars and Mornay Staines, I mean, they will say something, but they're not going to be the one sort of shouting at you. Whereas in the UK, for example, or in Ireland, it's Farrell and Sexton that are at your throat if you don't do something. So it is, I think, almost like a cultural difference there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right, Sean. It's removing one of those playmakers at least now gives an opportunity. And I think one person that will benefit is Suleiman Hotzenberg because this kind of opens up more opportunity for him to play at 13, I think. And yeah, maybe it's going to be more Sasha, Dan, and Hotzenberg at 10, 12, 13. Willems at 15 more permanently, and then Gelant being like your playmaker bench option. But I also think Dobbo, kind of what you're saying with the loose trio, like you have three players that are playing good individually, but maybe not the balance. I think Dobbo also has to make the decision of, I need a backline that has balance more than a backline that has the best players. So that probably means someone like Gelant might be going to the bench, or we don't see as much of a Similani or whatever the case is. And that's where sort of you have to do that give and take. Because, yeah, sure, like you said, this is now 2 seasons of somewhat disappointing play for the Stormers. I think you can validly ask some questions about, what the coaching staff are doing. But I also think it's a bit more than that. It's more that I don't think the team, the coaching staff, whatever you want to call it, have made the adjustment to, okay, we have a pretty different squad to the squad that won the URC and then the squad that went to the final the next season.
I just want to go back to Hotzenberg. He didn't have a good game on Saturday,
Yeah.
but is that the coaches making a move for next season? Like, did they think, listen, the one thing about Hartzenberg is that he will open a game up if the opportunity arises. So if it's tight, do your job, and then if it comes, like, he is a game breaker. Or like what? Because he hasn't played a lot of 13 this season. This is a knockout game, in Glasgow against a pretty top-notch backline. Like, he was going to get exposed. I didn't expect him to get exposed as much. But he didn't, like, he just wasn't there. But that's, to be fair, there was a lot of disruption all over for the Stormers. And I think he probably got the brunt of it out of everyone.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. Like, what was the decision making and thought process behind it? That's something I'd like to know. Like, is it a look towards the future? Then you can kind of justify it if you figured, the game was probably 70-30 in the favor of the home side going into it, something like that. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting. And we've been having this conversation for 2 seasons now about how they're going to do what they're going to do. And even before Sasha arrived in the way that he arrived, like, he was there, but he was playing for Province, and we were like, cool, we wasn't really in the conversation. Now, there's guys moving and leaving, but the same problems are there, it feels, like, you're saying you're going to bench Gelant, barring Willemse, Gelant's the best 15 that's there currently.
Yeah.
So
and he's actually had a pretty good season. I mean, he's had some horrible gaffes, but I think in balance, all in all, I think he's actually been really good, and like, he's really helped to unlock the Stormers' attack, because I mean, especially pre-Sasha coming back from injury, that Stormers' attack was looking pretty desperate, because there was no Sasha, there was no Mani, there was no Willemse for a lot of that season, and it felt like it was just Gelant that was able to get people into space, because Mattia is still, I think, trying to work himself out as a 10. So, I think he's more than a value. I mean, he's probably too good to be on the bench for most of your games, but you're also like, okay, how do you get the balance into the team? So, I mean, Shaun, I think you make a good point with the Hartzenberg thing. So, Dan du Plessis comes out, Lubbock comes at 10, it's Sasha 12, it's Hartzenberg 13. I would love to see how many minutes those players have played together in practice at 10, 12, 13, never mind in a game. So, I just think already, and I mean, on the other side, Glasgow have Jordan, a Scottish 10, Tuipulotu, a Scottish 10, and McDowell, a Scottish 10. I mean, a Scottish international player. They don't play at try-off, all of them. But that you have all of that experience and quality versus a lot of potential quality, but not necessarily the experience in the combination for sure. So even though the Scots or the Glasgow didn't have Hugh Jones, Stafford McDowell and Sione Tuipulotu have played 12 and 13 together a lot, because they usually do that rotation with Franco Smith. Tom Jordan has played with Sione. Tom Jordan has played with McDowell. So there is that combination, whereas the Stormers' inside backs kind of are all meeting each other for the first time and playing together for the first time.
Yeah. Oh, what are the Stormers going to do at right wing next year?
With Oloda? Yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem for Hartzenberg, is he's probably the number one option there. But
because Sinatla and Zas are both 11s.
Yeah.
And Zas could probably play 14, but yeah.
I mean,
they're a bit of problems, unless someone's coming through, or unless Dan just stays at 13. They're probably going to leave Dan at 13, have everything else as is, and Hartzenberg on the wing, and then interchange.
Yeah. I wonder, because, Hartzenberg, I mean, obviously he's done quite well at 14 when he's been asked to. Back in the day, they had Angelo Davids playing at 13, I mean, at 14, and I think he's still in the Stormers books. I'm trying to remember if he's played this season. Like, I guess the point is, and I think we've kind of been saying the same thing, is whatever the Stormers decide to do and whatever Dobber decides to do, they need to almost commit to, this is our loose trio template and combo. And until like injuries change things, we're backing, let's say De Villiers, Dixon, and Roos. and we're going to build a game plan that we can get the strengths out of you. So maybe we don't have the physicality we need to have with those three. Okay, we're going to compromise in this way. Maybe we are losing out on fetching. Okay, Ivan, it's time for you to learn to be even more of a fetcher. I mean, last season and parts of this season, I think he's been getting better at it. But you almost need to unleash Roux to be like what Hanepom is for the Bulls, where he's getting as many turnovers as Coetzee is. Then with the back line, it's, yeah, obviously not going to get Sasha for the whole season because he probably will play for the Springboks. But that 12 and 13 are probably not going to be in the Springbok setup. If it is Du Plessis and Hartzenberg, or it's Willemsen, Du Plessis, I mean, Willemsen is also Springbok, but whoever it is, those guys need to almost get to know each other and play with each other. If it's Simelane that you prefer instead of Hartzenberg, whatever the case is, there needs to be all of those combinations going, because in the previous seasons, you knew you had Ron now, you knew you had John Fury, you knew you had Achieva Daimani, you knew you had those players that were constants, and they weren't really in the box setup. So you had them for all 18 games. And now you have players that are coming in and out. You have players that obviously will get like enforced rest for the box, will come back with injuries from playing international games, all that sort of stuff. So who are now your constants and who can you build the side upon? So yeah, I think there's a lot of questions for the Stormers to work out. But I almost want to say, like, the fundamental thing is, I mean, yeah, I probably should have mentioned Ron now much earlier. That's probably a big reason why the defense has been working. So
it's no doubt in my mind. I think out of everyone, I think the Stormers need to be sending him off to Waisaki Noholo's doctor like already last season. He will literally prop up that 13. He's a great link player. If you look at the players when you talk about attack, like if you look at the likes of Sinatla or Zas or Hartzenberg or Gelant, and you've got Ruan now linking them with the likes of Sasha or Mani or Damien inside, like the guy is a glue guy. Like he's your man. Like he marshals the defense and he links your attack. The Stormers will go very deep. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah. So maybe then it's okay. Dan, you're gonna now be Ruan now. So Ruan now sit with them for the rest of the off season and transfer all of that knowledge that you can have. So Dan can be moved to 13. But whatever it is, I think a lot of decisions need to be made, and they need, I don't want to say like a perfect preseason, but they need a preseason where everyone understands their roles and can sort of hit the ground running, or at least know that we're going to be given the time to learn whatever we need to learn. So if it's Dan at 13, if it's De Villiers at 6, whatever the case is, and hopefully we'll build that knowledge, and then we will be a newish side and play a newish way. Because, yeah, it kind of feels like they're trying to play the way that they did 2 years ago when they won the URC, but they just don't have the cattle for it anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think then that, yeah, we can move from that. Glasgow then move on. They're going to face Leinster in the semi-final. Shaun, yeah, I watched this game. I think you watched it as well. The vibes are not vibing at Leinster right now. Like, look, I must say, though, a lot of people are obviously focusing on Leinster, fair enough, but Scarlets played really well themselves. I think they've been, like, the story of the second half of the URC. Like, they've been really good side. I think, you know, their loss of not being able to have Gareth Davies for this match, I think made it was a big difference. Like maybe could have been like a 7-point in the last few minutes type of game, but they really sort of kept themselves in the game. And yeah, really a lot of credit for them. Blaine Murray's going to be a star. You know, obviously you've seen with Fafita and Lousi, they've been really good as like the experienced players. You know, that those backline players are talented. But on the Leinster side, yeah, Shaun, it's like a question mark of I kind of am worried that if Glasgow gets like a 10, 14-point lead, it's almost game over. That Leinster will just be like, pack it in and be like, it's happening the same as all of the other knockout games. Don't really have much of a response to this. Okay, we're going home. Cheers.
So if Glasgow get a 14-point lead, Glasgow are going to operate in 5-point intervals, and Leinster are not going to get back in the game with 3-pointers. It's going to force Leinster to change the way they play and then hunt for the fives. So 5s and 7s. So it's going to be huge. If that happens, because Tuipulotu is going to be loud and in everyone's face. Geordie hates him because he's Australian already. You know what I mean? Like there's all that. So yeah, it could be quite fun. That I quite look forward to seeing that. But you're right, it's not vibing. This Champions Cup semi-final loss has impacted them as a unit like we thought last year's losses would impact them.
Yeah.
It has, it's that guy that's having a tough marriage and he the same age as you, but he looks 20 years older. He's he that's it's it's how it's what's happening. Like it's just not connecting, it's not working, they're going through the motions. I think Leinster need an off season, not off rugby, because I know a lot of them are going to go away with Ireland or go away with the Lions, but I think they need it not in blue. They need to not be around Dublin and surrounds and just go away. Just it's kind of like the Sharks and the Stormers in Super Rugby back in the day when they were having terrible seasons and getting booed at home, and then they had that 5 week trip to Australia, New Zealand. Like you could almost feel the players were like, oh, finally don't have to deal with this shit. It's a different time zone. I can't even like no one's awake even. So that's probably what Leinster need. I really don't think like even if they win the URC, I don't think they're going to be playing like we think they should play. Like that's how bad it is. I really think these scars are going to be there for many, many years. And it's weird. Like it's like the same players are just have they just lost the belief? Like, you know what I mean? Like what's going on? The pressure's definitely on Cullen. There's no doubt in my mind. I think after last season the pressure was on him.
Mhm.
Did he buy himself an extra year and have not delivered, or was he completely cushy in his job already? I don't know. But yeah, there are a couple of good performances, a couple of so-so ones. Again, I think Leinster, I don't think they were prepared for what Scarlets brought. That's
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like we're so used to Leinster playing a team and they bring something because Leinster's everybody's final. So they bring it and then Leinster just eventually overcome them. It's built up too much and then the house collapses and then Leinster run away with it. But now they're having to fight for that much harder. The teams are staying in the game much longer. But yeah, Scarlett surprised everyone, and I think I think Leinster are very quietly crapping themselves for Gloucester, but it's probably what Leinster need. Leinster need to face a side that they really believe can beat them. And then
Yeah.
we'll see what they've got.
That's the funny thing that you say is side that they believe they can beat them, but they beat them by 50 points just a few months back. Yeah,
100%, but you know that this is not Leinster 50, Gloucester 0, Glasgow 0 kind of a pre-game setup.
of
Everyone's
course.
like, whoa, hang on a second.
It's yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, we've tried to psychoanalyze, we've tried to make tactics changes. I don't think it helps that Leo Cullen is always chopping and changing his 23. Like, just stick with the same 23 and same starting 15 throughout these knockouts. Like, you don't need to
Ringrose might come back from injury, so they have to change their midfield again.
again. And now you're playing Sheehan off the bench. Why? You don't need to. It sounds like Van der Fleer might not make it this weekend. He's also a bit of an injury doubt. So,
Ooh,
yeah,
so does Penny start?
possibly, I guess. So, I don't, yeah, like, obviously injuries haven't helped, but it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of like just not cohesion. I mean, obviously they've played tons with each other. It's just there isn't that spark or that sort of extra whatever 5-10%. Like even with the Sharks, there is that moment in the game they all look at each other and they're just like, "Hey, hello, you're a Springbok World Cup winning player. Like you can't be being beaten by Zebre or by the Dragons, whatever the case is." And then they sort of turn it up for a little bit. And it's almost like the Leicester players, like obviously the win got sort of hit out of their sails with losing the Champions Cup semi-final, like how they did. So it's almost like they're whatevering through it. And yeah, I mean, I guess the Glasgow thing is great. Like you said, Sean, I mean, not only Tuipulotu is going to be chirping, that whole team has sort of built themselves on chirping. So maybe it sort of sparks Leinster, but I almost feel like it can also sort of put them like more into their shell. So yeah,
Le
I don't know. Like
Leinster Glasgow was the semi-final last season. Oh no, it wasn't. It was Bulls Leinster.
Yeah.
Damn it. Never mind.
Yeah. There's not even any really background like beef or whatever. Look, if Leinster are able to, because I mean, Glasgow still haven't really, I mean, Xander Ferguson hasn't been able to play for them. They haven't really had all of the people fit in their pack, especially, no Dempsey, the two Fergusons have been missing. Cummings has, I think, only really come into form now. Gregor Brown hasn't been really available. So I think Leinster have the better forwards. And, when they play Geordie Barrett, they have the best backline player on the field. Hint, hint at Leo Cullen. Don't put him on the bench. So this should, I mean, all of this said, this should still be a Leinster win. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm just hoping that they had the week off. Maybe they're just a bit sluggish, like they maybe usually are when they have that week off and play Champions Cup game. And maybe now they have that week, that sort of bad week out of the system. They'll play better. I don't know, Shaun. I mean, we've seen this movie a few times, and I'm trying to convince myself, like, I mean, I just don't want to talk about this Leinster thing for another season. Like, if it's not the Bulls, can Leinster at least try to like win this competition for once?
If Leinster don't win this competition, we don't talk about Leinster like this next season. It's done. It's 3 seasons in a row. Like we're over it. But this is rare air. Like they haven't even made a final yet.
No.
So this is huge for them. And I think they're very worried about it. There's all that. So like there is a lot of they need about 35 sports psychologists there because there's a lot of stuff. Like it is a knockout semi-final. Okay, so there's that. There's very recent scars of that. They've never won a URC semi-final, so there's more scars. There's all the shit of having not won a URC or a Champions Cup in the last 3 years. So there's scars. There's a lot. Like you cannot tell me like they can't go through this week trying to ignore it. You can't ignore that elephant in the room because that elephant is the room. So I really feel that they can talk a big game, but I think they big time need to say, listen, we are second over here, 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 and here. Like just tell the guys, listen, if we're gonna do this, we have to go and beat the best side. Because this other way of them operating is not working, and they've clearly shown that they're not so good, especially this year. Like they're good, but they're not good when it matters. So I don't know how you're going to motivate the side. There's something I want to talk about. I was just having a look at some numbers. I was always so intrigued by James Lowe because they use him as a defensive clearing kicker, and I was just interested to see what his numbers were because I never had them. I've found his numbers. 10 kicks. My numbers are slightly off in terms of the kicks and the meters, but it's 10 for 450. But what I do know factually is he averages 45 meters for a kick out of hand. And that's just in the quarterfinal. Like, imagine having the opportunity to, more often than not, have a guy kick from inside your 22 in your lineout and their lineouts in their half. It is insane. It's insane. His kicks are so good that you're kind of like in a position of the field where you're like, we've got to play and hope for a line break or hope for a penalty to get back into their 22. It's not a case of us just picking and going and sorting it out. So, yeah. The other is Jamison Gibson Park. Everything revolves around him. He's
not been at top form the last 2 months. Yeah.
He is not in the form he was in, and he's currently in better form he was in 4 months ago, because he really took a big dip. But they need him desperately, because he shows glimpses of it. He's got like moments where he's like ripping 30 meters, skip 20 passes to the winger from the other 5 meter line. So he's got it. But they need him on form desperately.
Yeah. Shaun, let's go through the other competitions. We'll start with Super Rugby. They've also got their playoffs set up. I'll get to you on some of your thoughts about the playoffs. Actually, this has been the first weekend I watched quite a few of the games. So I watched, I think, a lot of the Brumbies Crusaders game. And that was obviously a big game. Maybe, I might have also led us as a pod astray and our listeners astray, because I thought the system was that the top two get themselves a bye. So I was like, this is a big game because I was like worried about my Brumbies. I'm going to try to own them and say my Brumbies. They needed this win because they'll get a top two. They'll be in a bye. They'll then be able to host a semi-final. And it was a nice humdinger game. Like, it came really to a last moment. Crusaders pretty much scored a try where they pretty much definitely Severis knocked it on a few phases before, but it wasn't seen. Obviously Australians are not happy about that, but it also was up to the Brumbies. They probably should have not taken the 3 points because they got like a lead from that. They should have taken 7 and I think tried to win the game like that because it did seem like they gave, it happens in the NFL as well, where you score too early near the end of the game. So you give the other team enough time to go from like the one side of the field to the other to score the touchdown. And that's, I think, what happened to the Brumbies. They the 3 points was like, oh, that's too early. You're giving the Crusaders too much time here. So then they were able to come back. But yeah, I mean, it was just such a really good high quality game. Rob Valentini and Lenny Kitao are on top form. Don't have to worry about those two. The Crusaders backline is really interesting. It's probably the first time I've watched them sort of minute to minute. I mean, I like Rayana at 10. I think he's a very tidy player, like maybe not much more than that. Hotham, you can see the potential he has at 9. They're trying to use Almua and Fiaki as like strike runners. They've been really good. Severin Rees has probably like just put himself as like probably the best maybe winger in Super Rugby for the last 2 seasons. I mean, he's at least in the conversation. I don't know if that necessarily translates into international form, but he's been really good. So it's going to be tough to beat the Crusaders. I mean, I think the Chiefs are still the best team, but if we see a Crusaders Brumbies game semi-final, I think this can also go down to the wire, and the home advantage is going to matter a lot for the Crusaders. But yeah, we finished the game, and then I check on my Ultimate Rugby app, Shaun, and I'm like, wait, there's 3 matches, not 2 matches for Super Rugby. Shaun, can you explain to me why the Crusaders and the Chiefs are playing this weekend?
So, in the absence of our dear friend Cooks, I am going to have a rant. What the flippin' hell are they thinking? So, I've only picked this up last week, and I'm looking at it, and the guys are talking about 3 playoff games. And I'm like, well, shouldn't there be 4? Same as you, the top 2 go through, then 2. I was like, no, this is not making sense. I've misread. And then I went onto the website and I read about, and then I glanced through it and I wasn't paying attention, obviously, because I was like, oh, whatever. Then I went back to that message I initially saw and I'm like, no. And I'll go back to Super Rugby website and I'll go read this. I actually had to double check that it was the official Super Rugby website because I didn't believe it. So this year, these idiots, okay, not just freaking 20-minute red cards and all this hullabaloo about the best competition in the world, they have, I can't believe this, the top 6 sides play the knockout. So this is where we all went wrong. We thought it was top 6, 1, 2, and then 2, done. They have put those top 6 into 3 knockout games. The winners of each of those tri-finals go through to the semi-final, and the highest place loser, the highest place on the log loser. Are you shitting me? So I'm looking at this. I sent it into our group and Cooks didn't reply, and I think he's still trying to compose himself why he didn't reply. He probably just flat out ignored it like it's a load of crock of shit. But so then I go, after all of this goes down, Super Rugby happens, the final round, and then I look at the knockouts as well. I'm just, like, I'm still so shocked to say something. So 6 sides make the knockouts. It's 3 knockout games. 3 winners go through, and then the highest placed log loser. So then I see this tweet from the ACCNZ, and they're like, so this is them explaining this beautiful thing to us. If the Crusaders and the Chiefs both win their playoff games, then the Brumbies and the Hurricanes game becomes redundant, as it doesn't matter who wins. Both teams will advance to the semi-finals of the competition. Imagine losing a knockout game, but still going through. Uh,
I mean, even worse, Sean, imagine knowing before your knockout game, you're in the semi-finals, essentially. So
I can't believe this.
yeah, I mean, I guess the only advantage is if you win, you face, I guess, the Crusaders instead of facing the Chiefs. I mean, if you can call that an advantage. But yeah, I guess we should. I mean, this is a be careful what you wish for situation. So we were bagging Super Rugby last season because they had 8 out of the 11 teams, well, 12 teams at the time, make the knockouts. And we're like, that's a
I can't
stupid
believe
system.
this.
So,
They
yeah,
made it
maybe,
stupider.
yeah, I guess it's one of those where you like some like and I mean Sean you're a parent so I'm sure you've had the situation where your child quickly explains something to you says like you ask them hey did you do the dishes and they go yeah no and you just go okay cool then you come back home you just realize that they've like hid the dishes under a mat or something like that so we asked Super Rugby hey did you change the player format they're like yes it's a top 6 now and we
And then
just
everyone's like, okay.
yeah, we all did the maths in our heads to be like, cool, 2 buys, all that sort of stuff. And then we come back, we're like, oh no, this is not what we thought you were saying when you said you have a better system. So yeah,
The, the only thing that you can say about this is you tried something new. Well done. Like
I
we
guess.
gave the intern a go and we will not be doing it again.
So yeah, sure. Then I don't even know what you can even say about these knockouts because technically this matters absolutely zero to the Chiefs because whatever happens, they're in.
Because they finished top of the log. So
Yes.
there's no ways. I didn't even think of that. So I haven't even bothered to really have a look at this because, firstly, it's breaking my brain. But secondly, I think it is just so stupid, it's not worth the time. But yes, I didn't even think of that. The Chiefs literally, this knockout game before this quarterfinal game doesn't matter.
I'm absolutely now looking at this, super surprised that Tupovai, David McKenzie, Sean Stevenson, Roy Narawa are even playing this game because they really technically could just be like, okay, cool, whatever, rest the players, and then we'll come back and come face them in the semi-final. So well, I mean, this is news. A certain Wallace Atiti is coming back to play this game, so that's obviously big news.
So TT's been he played this weekend.
Yes. But I mean, like, yeah, so he's been actually there for a month now. So, like, it doesn't even make sense to play your first team in this game. It's like
I reckon the Super Rugby bosses got on the phone ASAP and were like, guys, please, please just name your full strength side. We know we messed up. Just name it because imagine they went and named imagine it was the Leinster All-Star Ruddock 15 that Chiefs put out.
or like
Because
the Bath under 18s that they played against Saracens this weekend or something crazy like that.
imagine. I reckon there were big, like, what do you need? We'll do you a favor. It was a conversation SA Rugby had with EP Kings, just to save face and then just throw them away afterwards.
Yeah, so I guess these things matter, don't really matter. So the Chiefs will face the Blues. The Blues got themselves into the knockouts after thrashing the Waratahs 46-6. Unfortunately, the fairy tale story from Wanda Pacifica ends quite badly. I mean, the last 2 weekends have been an 80-point and a 60-point losses to the Chiefs and the Hurricanes. So yeah, that just fell sort of the trapdoor just fell very quickly for them. And then yeah, the Reds also assured their place with the big win against the Fijian Drua. So yeah, the last weekend didn't quite maybe live up to what my expectations were. I thought this would be all of these 6 knockout games. I mean, I thought, or 5 knockout games, I thought obviously there'd be bigger stakes than what they actually were. But yeah, we've obviously got, the road to the finals now. Chiefs are going to face the Blues. The Crusaders have got the Reds. The Brumbies have got a tough one against the Hurricanes. But as we talked about now, it might not even matter, to be honest. So yeah, Sean, I mean, I don't even know if it's worth doing predictions because even literally one of these losers will come back next week.
Bruce, someone's gonna wake up with a horse head in their bed because the bookies are like, we've got a whole weekend off because it doesn't matter. No one's betting on anything because it just doesn't matter.
Someone's going to lose by like, possibly can lose by like 50 points, and they'll be like, okay, cool, we've got a semi-final still against the Chiefs or whatever.
I bet you Leo Cullen's on the phone with the URC CEO, forget his name, Aneri,
Yeah.
and be like, hey, have you seen what Super Rugby are doing?
Can we do that?
Hook a brother up for the final. Just do it for the semi-finals. We'll finish top of the log. At least we guaranteed a final.
That could work for them. Okay, and then the Premiership has also now got themselves to their knockouts. The four teams are in. Bath are going to be facing Bristol. Leicester going to be facing Sale. Pat Lam, Bristol coach, has had a lot to say about Bath and their spending.
Sean, they've been fighting ugly, eh?
I didn't even so I saw the comments. I was like, okay, Pat Lam's gonna Pat Lam. But I didn't know that this happened straight after the game that they played on Friday. So he was on it, I mean, or Saturday, I should say. He was on it as soon as possible. He was like, well, forget this game that we just won. We've beaten Bath, I think, 7 of the last 10 times. They're a moneybags team. You know, we're the salt of the earth team. I'm like, hey, didn't you not just buy like Ellis Genge and pretty much like 3/4 of your team just now? But okay, whatever, Pat.
Yeah. Didn't you just have Charles Pieta? So very interesting. Is I think Pat's come out swinging like this, because Bath really are cooking. But when Bristol hosted Bath in Wales and Bath sent a second string side, Bath pushed them. I know the final score doesn't look it, but there were moments where Bath could have done better. So yeah, I think he's trying to get in their head. I think he's trying to work on the fact that they lost the final last year. He's trying to make it a bit of a speed bump, because if it was anyone else, like, it's a derby, basically. I mean, you can tee up a nice drive and go from the Wreck to Ashton Gate. You know, it's not too far. So there's a lot of rivalry there. It's going to be a cracking game, absolutely cracking game. But I think he needs to get in their heads. I think he needs to Jaden Hendrikse them a little bit.
I mean, yeah, look, Bath are clearly still the favorites. I mean, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, like, it's very difficult to see, like, it's only Bath that can get in their own way to stop themselves, because they've been like clearly the best team in the Premiership. So I guess Bears need to take whatever advantage that they need to take. And I think Bristol also knows that if and when Bath sort of turns it on up front, there's not a team in England that can live with them. So I guess these are the ways to try and sort of put the pressure on them, put the advantage on them. But yeah, I mean, I think this would have worked a lot more if Bath didn't have, like, it's almost disrespectful to say winning a Challenge Cup was a practice run, but it kind of was for Bath to be like, okay, we don't need to worry about last year's final. We've got over that hoodoo. Finn Russell, we're not saying you're a fraud that can't win trophies. You've just won one. So they've now at least played some knockout football, and they know, like, okay, we know what to do on the day in order to do it. I guess Bristol, I mean, they're obviously the big sort of like point scorers in English rugby. Their game plan must be, we need to make this a race to 50, basically. Just try to pile on the points.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because that's Bristol's vibe. Bristol got that that scorolitis disease that Harlequins had a while back, where it was like we'll just score one more try than you. You know, that, like, it doesn't matter what the score is as long as we've scored more than you, and therefore win 48-51. You know what I mean? Like, I think if it goes on to the trenches, I think that's the worst possible thing that could happen to Bristol. Bristol do like to be loose. They can fight it out with some mauling and and they can scrum reasonably well, but they're really all about unleashing Bernard Jansen van Rensburg and Ibitoye, who I don't know how is not in the England squad. I just do not know. I cannot understand how he's not there. So yeah, it's going to be blockbuster. It's Friday night, I think. Yeah, yes. Friday night. So it's a good start to the weekend. But the nerves are real. Like,
I can imagine.
Bath. It's like Crusaders, Saracens. Leinster before it was the URC. Like, you just know they're going to go on and win the tournament because they're just so good. But the nerves are there for the real, because it's the first time in forever. They haven't won the Premiership.
Yeah.
Unfinished business, a bit of scar tissue from the final they lost last year. So, yeah, big style.
Then on the other side, I think this will be more of like a tight classical semi-final, Leicester Sale. Yeah, I mean, I think both of them have sort of built themselves up with like really good form sort of to finish up the season. Obviously, really just two really good, like high quality sides. Sean, yeah, I don't know how do you feel like this will go? Because I mean, Sale's been threatening for quite a while. Tigers are so weird. Like they've had obviously a really good season. They've won the Premiership recently, but they've also just been desperate sometimes. They have obviously the extra motivation of Dan Cole and Ben Young's also retiring, Henry Pollard leaving as well. So yeah, I kind of think I'm backing Leicester because Sale always finds a way to mess it up in a semi-final.
So the last time the two of them played, it was just basically watching Andre Pollard and George Ford arm wrestle. It was brilliant. Eventually Leicester got out on top. They just had too much for Sale. It's going to be the same. I think that both sides, it'll ebb and flow between who's on top, not necessarily points wise, but in the game, and it'll be close. Like whether it matters, like whether that ebb and flow is on the scoreboard or not, we're going to see it, and it'll go a lot deeper. That's what I do feel. I think Sale would have learnt a little bit more. They're probably not going to be as loose just so they can stay in the game, because Sale need to stay in the game. If they're in the game with the last 10 minutes, they're the kind of side that'll go and upset anybody. They've got that in them. Same as Bristol. Like you don't want any of those teams in the game when it matters. And that's what Leicester are going to want to do. But there'll be a lot of this is going to be probably the closest to the test match game. Like there'll be a lot of like penalty, they'll kick for poles. The thing is, Sale have that with Ford, is they have the ability. He's in such good form. Like how he's not going on Leinster, I don't know. He's in brilliant form. He's a great kick pass, kind of a fly half. Andre's got the kick pass run option. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. But it'll be a bit of a test match for the first 40 minutes. A couple of breakaway tries here and there. But Leicester going to want to put them to bed early.
Yeah, I want to touch very quickly on the Pro D2 because pretty much the biggest match, probably one of the most expensive matches ever, is the Pro D2 final to determine who gets promoted, and that's going to be between Grenoble and Montauban. I mean, yeah, I don't think, yeah, we will see how that goes out, but just the desperation of the Pro D2. I'm looking at the log, and obviously they play 30 games because the Pro D2 never ends. So Brive was second, and they were 4 points behind Grenoble for the whole season, and they lose to Montauban, and all that work that they did for 30 games now comes to nothing. They don't even have a chance to play either, the final or the playoff game against the second last team in the top 14. Oh, I know all like semi-final losses hurt, but this must hurt at a different level. Like obviously, Brive is the team with Cohen Bosch and Courtney Laws and everyone. I don't even know how you can even turn up for next season, just having sort of done all that work and still not be able to get across the line.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. JT Jackson scored for Montauban, and I mean that's so everyone knows this. Everyone knows the saying that the French like can't play away from home. It's the same in the Pro D2 and the top 14. Like everything matters at home. Like you win your home games, you can lose your away games by a million points. It doesn't matter. Your castle is what you need to protect. And Brive lost at home to Montauban, who, to be fair, I don't know how it went through the season, but to be fair, Brive have been by far the better side. And I don't know if they beat them twice this season or not, but yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. All you do is you got to put yourself in position, and then you've got two chances. And the thing about playing in the final is that if you lose the final, you still have a playoff game against the top 14 side, which is still TBC because there's one of three sides that could fit full bottom or second from bottom. So
Yes. Yeah, so actually speaking of, oh, also shout out to Skumbuzo Noche. He's also in Montalban. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's a big win for him. So we talk about the top 14, and there's this helpful graphic that shows you the range of places that each top 14 team has. So basically, the only teams that can relax this weekend because they don't really have any stakes are Toulouse, because they're first regardless of what happens, and Lyon, because they can't really qualify for Europe and they can't get relegated. So they'll be either 10th or 11th. It doesn't really matter. Everyone else is playing for either playoffs, European qualification, or relegation, which means this last week is going to be crazy. Vaughan are hanging on by the thinnest threads to keep themselves into the top 14. They need a lot of luck and a lot of help, and they need Bordeaux to fall asleep. But Bordeaux are having Toulon breathe down their neck for second place, and obviously there's an automatic place into the semi-finals, not this Super Rugby shit that's happening here. So just to make sure that everyone knows what's happening here. And then yeah, the battle for fourth to sixth is really interesting. So it's Bayonne, it's Castres, it's the back from the dead La Rochelle, Clermont are there, Pau still has a small chance as well. So yeah, anything can happen in this weekend's top 14 race. And yeah, so all of the games, all 7 games are all kicking off at the same time. Yeah, so I think there'll be a lot of, streams happening in different places and calculations and everything happening.
I will just want to tell you something. So the Canal Plus channel, they obviously do all the top 14, but on this final day, they have all the games live, okay? But they have one channel that
Yeah.
literally has the pundits there, and if something happens in a game, they talk about the try and how it happened, but then they talk about what matters. Then they talk about that, and then someone else scores, and then they shoot over to that game. So you're basically watching like 7 games at the same time and trying to translate everything.
No, it's going to be insane. So, yeah, Stade France have helped themselves, but they still, I think they probably need a few points against Castres. And Castres also looking for to get into the top six. Yeah, Vaughan obviously have a
And
tough.
bottom drop straight out into the Pro D2 and second
Yeah.
last plays. Whew.
So Perpignan probably at the best position because Toulouse are probably gonna. I mean, Toulouse might send a strong team because they have a week break after this.
Yeah.
So it is a bit like you could get into Mike, you could get Roman or Theo into Mike, basically, is what Perpignan are going to be trying to calculate.
Yeah, that's true. So, it's a tough one. Yes, they have a full week off while they play the barrage, or so there's 2 games for the quarterfinals, and then they shift those into the 2 semifinals. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be another absolutely sensational finish to the season, man.
And then just some quick news from France. So the FFR and the LNR and Gaultier have decided that they are giving exemptions to Gaultier to select some players that play in the top 14 final to be selected for the tour to New Zealand. But there are some crazy conditions to this. Basically, there mustn't be over a minutes limit of 2,000 minutes for the season. I think already Peno, Ramos, and LBB are over that limit, so they can't be selected, unfortunately. So that's, yeah. New Zealand fans, you're so close to getting LBB, you're not even getting them. And then you can only select 5 players from these 2 finalists, and the clubs still have to agree. So I'm sure Gaultier is already on the phone
So
trying
the
to
club,
select them.
see, that's the problem. It's when you leave that little thing there, the clubs have to agree. That's this whole thing where, so I saw Rugby Toulon, the fan account on socials was just saying all the people that are leaving and why they shouldn't be leaving. Like they're guys leaving because they're playing for Fiji. That's the kind of crap you got to deal with. Like this whole, you can play club rugby, but you must be released for test matches. Doesn't fly in France because they have a 50-week, they have a
Season.
50-week tournament, and then you got to fight off against the Pro D2. It's a shit show, man. It's
Yeah.
when they have to agree that nobody agrees.
So yeah, I mean, Sean, I don't even know where Gaultier could start. I mean, you can pretty much build a French team from the Toulouse and Bordeaux players if those are the 2 teams that make the final, because you have the first choice, or like, you have the first choice Lucid and Bai, you have Marchand, you have Aldegheri, you have Gelonk, you have Francois Crow and the loose forwards, you have Miafu and Flamand, you have Ntamak and Jalibe, you have Luke Koo, who's basically the first choice scrum half. I mean, we've talked about the back three options, they're all out. You have Deporte, you have Barassi, you have Mofana. Like, I don't even know how you choose five from that. So maybe is this is probably an announcement to say that Gautier can choose anyone, and this is just loosening it so that people are more prepared. I don't know, but yeah, you just never know because there's so many wild elements in French rugby. Like clubs could just say no. It seems like it does seem like the players have been trying to push this. I mean, remember Mike said after the Six Nations, like everyone wants to go down to play in New Zealand. So they almost are sort of backing the trend of speaking up against the LNR and everything. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how this sort of all plays out and which players are released. Because if it is Toulouse and Bordeaux that make it, there's some gaps that France have without, being able to choose those players. Like I think props, locks, fly half, scrum half, those are positions that they need, those Toulouse and Bordeaux players in.
But imagine Bordeaux go and win the double. Like they've never won the top 14. This is massive. Like every single one of those players will go straight up to their coach and just be like, say no. Say no. We want to stay at home and we're going to party forever. And then Toulouse, let's say they play in the final and Toulouse lose it, then they'll also go straight to coach and be like, just say no. We didn't win a single thing this year. I'm not going to go to New Zealand and lose. So, yeah. This is not the last we hear of this. There will be comments made. There will be players missing flights. It's going to be one of those. Because, listen, the French situation is so much like, I mean, look at what Jalibert did this year. Jalibert was like, listen, I'm not going to sit on the bench for the French national side. Screw you. I'm going to go play club rugby. In South Africa, you do that. The unions will be like, bro, you can't do that. That's our boss. Like, get away. Like, you are released from our clause. We all amicably agree to release you. In France, they welcome that. They're like, yeah, make all the enemies. You are only mine. You can be mine, and you'll be my friend, and I will call you Squishy. So yeah, it's gonna be chaos. I think this could be fun. Before the first test, there's gonna be something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right, Shaun. This is not the last we hear of this. I almost think it could either be all of these finalists will come or none of them will come. Like it could really be either or. So yeah, New Zealand, I don't know how Razor can even try to prepare for this.
1-1 going into the final test, and then they send all the boys down for the last week.
It really could be like Razor could be playing like almost 3 different teams in this test series. So let's see how that goes. Be careful what you wish for, All Blacks. You guys wanted the first choice French team. You might just get it. Shaun, I think let's now try to predict these URC semi-finals. We'll try to see if we can do another pod later in the week once we have the teams. But Shaun, it seems like you're leaning Sharks for, yeah, I see your logic. Never mind me being a Bulls fan. I just don't want this to happen because you can't be.
You're scared.
I mean, yes, I am, of course, but you can't be crap the whole season and then just decide to peak 2 weeks or the last 2 weeks of the season.
We are the opposite of Leinster. We are shit the whole year and important when it matters.
Oh goodness. If it's Sharks versus Leinster, like Leinster versus anti-Leinster, it'll be so funny.
Yeah, the Sharks are from the upside down. So I'm going to say the Sharks, and I'm going to say they're going to show glimpses of what they're available, what they can have, what they can give. It's going to change the whole narrative of how the Sharks are for the whole off season, and then for the first half of next season, everyone's going to be like, "Oh, the old Sharks are back."
Yeah, look, the Bulls are now the people's champions. We are fighting for rugby values. We have the whole of Munster supporting us right now, so we can't let them down. So we need to definitely win this game this weekend. So yeah, the Bulls, obviously, we have a lot of we've lost 2 finals, so we need to try and get ourselves to a third. Yeah, so this will be definitely wrong because I feel like there'll be at least one away semi-final win, but I don't know which one, and I don't want to say the Sharks one, but I'm gonna say it's the Bulls Leinster final. I think we're just gonna get the two top teams come through, win their semi-finals. It'll be dramatic, it'll be close, but I think it'll be those two, and then the Bulls will be making their flight there. If just a warning, Bulls, we've seen this happen before. You play your semi-final first. You'll be watching the Leinster game. Do not celebrate if Glasgow wins the semi-final. Just ask the Stormers what happens when you do that. So no video. Everyone must hand in their phone if they're going to do that post-match watching the game situation. No phones are allowed. No comments are made. Journalists from South Africa, don't phone Jake White because Jake White will say something crazy as well. So
Yeah, true.
let's just all pretend that we didn't watch the game. Let's just all wake up on Sunday and be like, oh, are we playing in Pretoria? Oh, great. And just move on with our lives.
So I'm going to say something. I was just looking at this now. I think a Leinster versus Bulls final is only something that those fans want. I think the neutrals want a Glasgow Sharks final.
Oh, no. Not even a Glasgow Bulls final. We're not even supported by the neutrals. Oh, gosh.
I tell you, Glasgow Bulls from Loftus is, I think, is probably the way to go. If we're going to talk about like big game and wow factor and last year's heartbreak and all that, I feel that that's what it's going to be. Cooks, just letting you know, if that's the case, I might just have to come visit again, just for Thala's sake, to break the hoodoo. Yeah, I think Bulls Glasgow. To be fair, every single one of these all four of these teams can win the competition.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that is quite enjoyable. I think you can see every one of those teams go away to Leinster and win. I think you can see every one of those teams go to Loftus and win.
Yeah.
Go to the Shark Tank. You know what I mean? Like there's a good balance there. So, but it all depends if the Sharks pitch up. We'll know after 20 minutes.
I don't even think that's true, Sean. Like, the Sharks could have a horrible 20 minutes, be 30 points behind, and then their good 20 minutes coincides with the Bulls sort of just falling asleep. And then it's 35-30 with 10 minutes to go. Like, yeah, Saturday's game is going to be Saturday's game could either be full chaos and be like 42-40 or be a test match and be like drop goals and penalty shootouts and whatever the case is.
The team talk is simple. Just make our shit 20 minutes less shit than theirs. That's the game conversation, the pre-match talk.
Yeah. Look, Bulls also, if we do go to a penalty kick out off or shootout, that is bad news for the Bulls because we barely have one kicker right now, never mind three. Between Johannes and David Creel, it's going to be a bit of a mess. But yeah, I think then the game plan must be we need to try and get into Jaden Hendrikse's head and get him like red carded before the kicks start.
Can we talk about substituting Bradley Davids onto the field with 1 minute to play? Can we talk about that as being one of the greatest decisions ever made? And then we also didn't give Bradley Davids his flowers. Like that kid, he was just playing keepy uppy on the side of the field with the rugby ball of all things. And then he was like, cool, I've got this. Kicking left foot, wrong side of the field. Bonkers. But anyway, what do I know? And then afterwards, he just thanks his girlfriend because he's like, she comes onto the rugby field and all I do is kick and she does her work here. I'm like, you legend. Legend. Cult hero status.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've seen it go wrong in football before where you sort of sub someone on for the penalty shootout and they're too cold, basically. But yeah, great stuff from Bradley Davids. Well done to Plumtree and Neil Powell for that. And it was like you said, because of the footedness and the angle, it was the most difficult kick. And I mean, all of the kicks were most of the kicks were sort of flying and scudding off a bit. I mean, obviously everyone was tired from playing 100 minutes of rugby. His one was probably the most true because he's probably the freshest one. So big ups to him. And I mean, he's shown like he really is seen as that BMT person. So look, if it does go down to that, the Sharks, they definitely have that in the back pocket. I can see Rassie Russell's just picking Brady Davis for the 2027 World Cup just for this off chance that you might get into a kickoff battle.
Listen, if you brought Bradley Davids on with 20 minutes to play, the game wouldn't have gone to kickoff because the Sharks would have won it. Okay, there, I said it. And they would have run it in normal time.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna go Bulls Leinster, get the establishment going. And yeah, I mean, I think as a Bulls fan, I kind of feel more comfortable with that because,
But
yeah,
Bulls at the Aviva is not them.
but it's with the underdogs. We've obviously beaten Leinster in a knockout
Yeah.
game over there before. Like, that's fine. Bulls Glasgow would stress me out so much because I'm just like, surely not. Like, if this happens twice, we actually need to sell the stadium to Glasgow. Like, they can just have Loftus. Like, we'll play in Witbank or something like that.
You can sign that contract between the tier 1 club and the tier 2 club where you do player transfers, one of those agreements.
Because yeah, there's absolutely no other reason to be losing twice to Glasgow. So yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of rugby to look forward to. That is what 8 knockout games if you count Super Rugby and Premiership Rugby as well. Shaun, wait, the Japanese?
That's finished.
That's finished.
Yep.
And the winners, Richie Mo'unga's side.
Yeah, Richie Mo'unga's won a trophy for 18 years in a row. No, 18? 9 years in a row?
Jeez.
I don't know. It's crazy. But yeah, they won it. Malcolm Marx, David Bullbring, Ruan the Lock from the Sharks. Can't remember. They they lost and yeah, Richie Mo'unga's side won. But you said that there are 8 knockouts, there's 9 knockouts. Don't forget Super Rugby's got an uneven amount.
Oh my gosh. Almost don't want to even talk about Super Rugby right now because they've just made me so mad. But yeah, so congratulations to them. It's just trying to see, yeah, like that's, yeah, so that's end of the Japanese season. So much to look forward to, I think, with the rugby right now. This is the best time of the year. All of the big games happening right now. And quietly, the Lions are happening in 3 weeks as well. So just keep your eye out on that as well.
And we've got a Springbok announcement soon.
Yeah. All this, I think the Irish squad came out as we were talking. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. And yeah, we'll be here breaking down everything. So please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast channels. Follow us. Make sure you share this podcast to anyone. Spread this rugby gospel. And yeah, we will see if we are going to record something later in the week. Otherwise, we'll see you back on Monday. Hopefully, at least for myself or Shaun's sake, there'll definitely be one of us that'll be unhappy after Saturday. So let's hope if it is going to be like that, let's hope it's as spicy and dramatic as the Sharks Munster game. Good luck to all the teams. Good luck to all the supporters. Pace yourselves. And yeah, we will see you again after these matches happen. So goodbye, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.